and I was a bit worried.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. My name is Patrick, and I'm currently working as a backend engineer at Verve here in London. We do stuff around festival travels and other experience-related stuff. So if you're interested about that, we can talk. So yeah, today I'm going to talk about Strawberry, which is one side project I was working on in the past few months. But first, just want a quick show of hands. Is anyone using GraphQL? So yeah, a few people, like 3, which is quite good. So what is GraphQL? GraphQL is a way to communicate between a backend and a client. Usually it's preferred as an alternative to REST. So for example, if you have a mobile application and a backend, you can use either REST or GraphQL to communicate between those two parts. And the specification says that GraphQL is a query language, and it's been created by Facebook in 2012 to solve some of the problems they were having with their mobile application, because they were switching from HTML to native apps, and they needed a performant way to fetch data from their clients. And it's also been open since 2015. And as I was saying, sometimes it's referred as an alternative to REST. So it can be used with HTTP, but you're not limited to that. You can also use WebSocket. You can use ODP, for example, if that's what you need. In the case of HTTP, it only uses a single endpoint. So for example, in REST APIs, you have one endpoint for each resources that you have, or multiple in some cases. And with GraphQL, you have only one. So you can use this endpoint to request the data that you want. So you do a post request to /GraphQL, and then you get the data back. Also, every GraphQL APIs have types. So this, for example, is a schema for a website that has a list of categories. Each category has a name and then a list of items, and each item has a name and a description. And to query, you basically send a document that looks like this. It looks like a JSON but without the values. So in this case, I'm saying, oh, I need the categories, I need the name. And then you will get something like this back. So for example, sandwiches and nuggets. But if you want to get also the items and for each item the name, you can also do that without doing anything different. You just ask for the data, and then you get something like this back. I do have an example. I'm not sure if that works. Let's see. Yeah, it's connected to my phone, which is disconnecting now. But yeah, anyway, you can use, since everything is typed, you can use GraphQL with these kind of tools that basically allow you to do introspection of the schema, so you can get all the information about the schema, so you don't have to dig around the source code and so on. You can also do stuff like auto-completion. For example, you can get a list of items and so on without having to remember everything. There are also other tools that are more powerful. For example, you can see a sidebar where you can click stuff and play around. This is actually fetching data from the bread menu. This is why it's slow. But I can move on. My phone is not. Okay. Yeah, it's working. Cool. You also have multi-operation, because for now I was talking about queries. So you have queries to get the data. You have mutation to update data. So for example, if you want to create a new user, send an email, for example. And then you also have subscription. This is actually something I'm really excited about. It's an easy way to basically create a subscription to an event. So you can say, oh, I always want for example, the last tweet for a user. And it basically works the same. So you can say, I want this data, but as a subscription, and then it's going to return every time something happens on the server. And there's also a lot of more stuff, especially if you work on the front end. The ecosystem is quite powerful. I don't really have time to show everything. But yeah, we are a Python meetup. There are a few options for Python. So there are these 4 libraries. So the first 2 are Arminio and Flat. They have a different approach than the last 2, and I'm going to show you a bit more. But also these 2 are the newest one, including mine, which is all of them. They're not stable and production ready, but hopefully they're going to be soon. So I guess if you're using GraphQL in Python, you're probably using Graphene, which is the most popular library. So as I was mentioning, I was working on this library called Strawberry, and I have a few reasons why. So when I started this project, actually, the other libraries there didn't exist, and the graphene was a bit in a weird state because there were no maintainer, but this has changed. But also I wanted to experiment, have a bit of fun, trying to create my own library and also learn new stuff. And also I wanted to experiment with new features because GraphQL is really powerful and there are lots of stuff that people are trying, especially in the JavaScript world. And I wanted to try this stuff. And if you're trying, for example, to contribute to a library that's really being used by loads of people, it's really hard to convince them to, oh, let's try this, because maybe it might break stuff in production, which is no ideal. And also I wanted to improve the ecosystem. So having one library is good, but if you have more, you can share ideas between different libraries, try different approaches, and then you can improve everything together. So how does it work? When I was thinking of the API, I was trying to make it as simple as possible and as Pythonic as possible. So if you know about Python 3, there's this feature called typings, which is basically a way to annotate functions, variables, and classes with types, which are not really used at runtime. So this code, even if you, for example, in Singify, you're passing a float, it's still gonna work. It's not gonna complain. But this is useful, for example, if you have an ID that can inspect the types, or for example, using a tool like MyPI, so you can lint and get errors and use the things in the wrong way. There's also some way to use this stuff in a runtime, for example, with enforce, so you can say, you can annotate that function, and if you're passing the wrong type, it's gonna return an error in runtime. But yeah, this is quite powerful. The other thing is called dataclasses, which is being added to Python 3.6, and it's similar to name tuple. So it's a way to define a data container as formed as a class without having to write much code. So for example, here we have a class called inventory item where you have a name, a price, and a quantity. And it's using typings to basically specify the type and create all the fields that you need for this class. And it's going to generate the init method, representation method, equal method, and so on. So you don't have to write any code. These 4 lines are enough. And I was thinking we can use the same approach for GraphQL types. If you've seen it before, we have a type which is it's easy to map to a Python type. So you can just create a class for each type, and then you can add the decorator, which I called it Verve type. So basically, this is enough to create a GraphQL schema in Python using the library, And then you have to pass data. So the way usually in GraphQL you have things called resolvers, but in Python I didn't find a nice way to map this. So I was thinking something like a decorator on a function should be enough, because basically you have all the information. So you have the field name, you have eventual argument, and also you have the return type, and then you can fetch the data. I'm going to show a demo. Actually, I'm going to show a bit of code first. Let's see. So I was.
Sorry, can you zoom in a bit?
Yes, sure. So I wanted to do a demo with subscription. So on this side, you can see the Python stuff. The problem is I was using the World Cup, and they're not playing right now. Because they're playing in 20 minutes. Because I wanted to get like the live score and really real time, but I can show how it works anyway. So I define a type that's called match. So you have on, away, which are strings, and you have date time, home score, away score, and the status. And then there is another field that's called seconds in started. So these are like fields that are just connected to data, and this one is basically computed at runtime. And then I create a subscription type where it's basically doing infinite loop. It's getting the matches from the website, and then it's going to return them, and then it's going to wait a couple of seconds, and then it's going to do it again. I'm going to try and see what happens now. I think it's going to turn. It might not be running. So yeah, this is basically asking the server to do a subscription. This is basically, these are the matches from a few days ago. You can see the seconds are changing. Seconds are wrong because the website is using a weird way of defining dates and the wrong time zone. So, but yeah. So those also the games are gonna start in a few minutes. And as soon as they start, they're gonna basically update the data without me having to do anything. And if you're familiar with the front end, this is React, and the data, the code for this is it's just this. So there is the subscription query. So basically, I'm asking for this data, this subscription, and then I'm using Apollo, which is it's got this subscription thing that basically is going to return the data, or it's also going to tell me if it's loading or not, and also errors. And then for all the data that I have, it's gonna create the HTML that you've seen on the front end. I also have another demo that might be more interesting. So. I always forget to do this. Okay, so this is the API I was showing you before. This is using the Verve website to fetch the menu. So this is actually opening up a Chrome browser under the hood and getting the data. Because I was trying to experiment with async and basically trying to do real-time scraping of websites. But definitely this is no ideal if you're scraping a website because it's basically opening a browser and it takes a while. And it might be broken as well. Yeah, so this is working. And also you can get, for each category, you can get the items, and then you can get the name. I also put the nutritional information, but that's basically going to open a page for each item, and it's going to load like 100 pages, and it's going to take 5 minutes because it's also not, I'm not caching anything. But yeah, anyway, that was it. So this is, I know this is a bit abstract, but basically I'm trying to make this library as easy and user-friendly as possible. And this is my personal roadmap for version 1. So basically supporting all these Python simple types. So basically you can just use the Python types that you have in your application, and that would be converted to a GraphQL type. Also supporting async, which I think it's really important, especially these days if you want to have performant APIs. Support for unions, which is almost done. Support for query, mutation, substitution. So these are the 3 types that you can, operation types that you have in GraphQL. So you can get the data, you can change the data, and you can do subscription. Then there is a debug server, which is this one. Basically, it's not really working well, especially with async, because every time you change the scheme, it's going to refresh the application and break some the event loop, but it's almost there. Also supporting ASCII3 if you've been working on with async Python. ASCII3 is basically it's similar to WSGI but for a synchronous application. And then I think the most important thing is writing the docs, which I haven't done. And then to make it stable, because right now it's working, but it's no, especially with subscription, it's a bit flaky. Sometimes it breaks without any reason, especially because I just refactor stuff, and it's not super easy to work with the Python event loop if you do advanced stuff. But yeah, I think that was it more or less. This is the website, which is just a link to GitHub, and this is my Twitter, and this is where I work if you're interested in that. Is there any question?
Hi. Does the subscription work via WebSockets or Success events? Or?
No, they are working with WebSocket right now. Actually, that's a good question. There are some additional feature of GraphQL. It's called defer, so you can. So for example, you can one of those fields you can defer it, so you can do like for example items. they can say defer. So you're gonna ask this field, but the server is not gonna return until it's ready. So for example, if you have a field that takes, I don't know, 5 seconds, for example, to load, you can say, oh, I want this field, but you can defer it. So it's gonna send, for example, in this case, the name, and then the items only when that's ready, and that's gonna use HTTP streaming, which I really want to experiment that one.
We use Graphene at the St. Bridges, which works reasonably well, but we're going to have a big upgrade. So maybe we could consider using something else. What would you say is better about your implementation than Graphene's implementation?
So, I mean, I'm biased, but I think Graphene is suffering a bit from the fact that it's been developed a few years ago with Python 2 in mind. So if you're gonna check the code, there is a lot of abstraction on top of Python 2. So for example, there are some abstraction on promise library. So if you wanna do async stuff or data loader stuff that's using promise library, that's not great, especially for debugging. I wouldn't recommend to use this now because it's definitely not ready. It also depends. For example, if you're using Django, Graphene has more support, or for example, SQL Alchemy. We are doing support for Django in Strawberry. A friend of mine is working on that one, but I don't know when it's going to be ready. The other library I mentioned, there is, let's see. Yeah, this is another library for GraphQL. And it's taking a different approach where you basically, instead of writing Python, I mean, you're still writing Python, but instead of writing the schema as code, you write the schema as a schema file, which is another approach that some people prefer. I don't prefer it, because I think it's much easier to write Python and reuse the stuff around. I mean, if you're interested, we can also try, I mean, I'm definitely looking for contributors. So yeah, we can have a look around, see how the code is, and feel it for yourself, I guess. But yeah, I guess the other advantage is that it's like, I don't know, at least for me, the API which I'm writing, it's quite nice and it's easier to use than Graphene. Graphene is not too complex, but I think this is a bit nicer. And yeah.
Data classes.
Yeah, it's easy. The data classes and the dude, which you basically can reuse. If you're using data classes, you can reuse stuff around in your code base. And right now, the auto-completion is not working because I need to write a MyPy plugin. But once that's done, it's gonna work out. So.
Okay. So Graphene's implemented in terms of another library, GraphQL Core or Server Core and all of that.
Yes.
Do all 4 libraries use the same core library, or is yours different? Like, how do they have different?
So yeah, for who doesn't know about this, there is a GraphQL core library, which is basically a porting of GraphQL JavaScript into Python, which is basically it's like the fundamentals of both Ariadne, Strawberry, and Graphene. The other library called Tartifet that's not using GraphQL core. Also, Ariadne and Strawberry, they're using GraphQL Core Next, which is the new version of GraphQL Core, which is going to be merged at some point this year as GraphQL Core, because the new version is using, it works only with Python 3 using async stuff. So the other one is using, I think it's a C library with Python bindings to basically parse the GraphQL stuff, and that should work. I don't know how it works. But personally, I don't know if I'm gonna keep using GraphQL Core Next. It's definitely good because I don't have to write anything related to the types and stuff, so I can focus on the API. But maybe in the future it's not gonna be performant or easy to extend. Thank you.
I think that's it for today. So
Yes. Yeah, please finish off the food. We slightly overcatered. I think we should probably do what everyone else has done today, go to the pub. There's a good one over there called the Dickens. But yeah, feel free to finish the food and have some beers before that if you want. Yeah. Good weather.
yes.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting this to be this fun.